Prime Field.
Welcome! This is a focused analysis of immediate impact at UConn. She's mature and her game has matured. Coach Gino Auriemma said of one newcomer, the line is not rhetorical, it is diagnostic. The central question, which freshmen and newcomers will contribute meaningful minutes in 2025 and 26? Right away, not someday. The brief answers that question by privileging verifiable playing time indicators, preseason positioning, and explicit deployment signals from the coaching staff. This film will examine the evidence. It will follow a single rule. Do not confuse ceiling with readiness. Immediate impact requires to be fit, opportunity, and a coach willing to play a newcomer in competitive minutes. The next chapter explains the criteria used to make that judgment. The ranking prioritizes functional contribution. Playing time data matters. Preseason roles matter. Coach Auriemma's public framing matters. This is not a draft board of upside. It is a roster evaluation for the coming season. The brief set a measurable bar, rotational minutes by January. It therefore weights known game reps, exhibition performance, and coach testimony above abstract scouting praise. One procedural note. While the headline promises 5 newcomers, the supporting evidence in the brief centers on 4 named players. The analysis proceeds with those 4, assessed in order of immediate impact potential. The first profile examines the player the brief ranks highest. Blanca Quinonez enters UConn as the profile of readiness. She's 6'2" and listed as a forward. She carries professional experience from Italy's Serie A1. Not only that, but she has national team minutes for Ecuador. These are quantifiable antecedents. In early appearances, she showed game-trim behaviors. In the Southern Connecticut exhibition on October 26th, she produced 12 points in 20 minutes. In the Loyola Chicago contest, on November 12th, she recorded 5 points, 3 rebounds, and 2 steals in 14 minutes. Those box score lines arrived despite extremely limited practice time after a shoulder issue. That is evidence of on-court translation. Coach Auriemma's description is explicit. He invoked maturity and exposure to high-level competition overseas. Within the program's context, that language signals a posture other than long-term redshirting. UConn historically rewards readiness with immediate minutes. The coach's repeated emphasis on maturity functions as a deployment cue. Risk here is low and quantifiable. Quinonez has international experience dating to the 2019 FIBA U16 Americas Championship and statistical contributions for Ecuador's senior team at the 2022 South American Championship. That background argues for reliability in decision-making and positional versatility at the 6'2". The brief's projection is concrete. Expect 15 to 20 minutes per game by January, scaling if the wing rotation requires load management. Social sentiment drawn from fan forums likewise trends toward bullish about immediate two-way contributions. Quinonez's timeline and profile close this chapter. The next chapter profiles the high-ceiling backcourt prospect. Kelis Fisher arrived with external validation. She was the Big East preseason freshman of the year. ESPN ranked her among the nation's top recruits. She led IMG Academy to the 2025 national title and scored 25 points in the championship game. Those accomplishments frame expectations. Her early minutes were a mixed read. In a debut against Boston College, she logged 7 minutes with no points and 2 fouls. That performance is consistent with a freshman adjustment pattern. Yet subsequent shooting data in the brief shows corrective progress, a 60% field goal conversion across 2 games following the initial setback. The brief documents a high-pressure semifinal in which she posted 31 points and 11 rebounds for overtime select. That demonstrates capacity to produce under stress. Auriemma's recollection of scouting Fisher is telling. He noted surprise at her youth, indicating he perceived readiness beyond age. The coach's interest in end-to-end athleticism and defensive disruptiveness speaks to how Fisher will be used. Quick bursts, defensive rotations, and transition minutes. Risk classification is managed, but real. Turnover tendencies and early foul trouble make immediate minutes conditional. The brief projects 8-12 minutes per game through December, with a potential rise to 15-18 minutes by conference play if decision-making stabilizes. Fisher's role reads as a relief engine for the primary point guard and a situational pressure weapon. This profile closes on a clear conditional. If turnovers fall and defensive discipline tightens, reactive deployment turns into substantive rotational time. The narrative now turns to the interior prospect with the highest variance. Gandy Malou-Mamel is 6'5". She represents the developmental archetype. Her recruiting rank and late start in organized basketball produce a non-linear growth curve. The brief flags her as the program's most genuine lottery ticket. Her statistical footprint at Gilles St. Bernard's was strong. Senior averages of 17.1 points, 10.2 rebounds, and 2.2 blocks. Internationally, with Ireland's U20S at the 2024 FIBA Eurobasket Division B, she averaged 10.6 points and 10.0 rebounds. Those numbers demonstrate rebounding instincts and rim presence, albeit against less elite competition. Auriemma's assessment is precise. He called her raw but noted valuable traits: floor running, defensive inclination, and rebounding desire. He framed her as a complement to existing bigs, not an immediate cornerstone. That framing constrains expectation of starter-level minutes in year one. In early game action, she logged extremely limited time. Against Loyola Chicago, she played 147 and produced no counting stats. The brief's projection places her in an 8-12-minute backup role in year one, with the realistic pathway to 18-24 minutes by year two if interior skill and foul control progress. Her development remains practice-dependent. Fouling or inability to adjust to college spacing would limit court time. The fan discourse mixes skepticism with intrigue. The raw frame and rebounding profile attract interest. The late start in competitive basketball explains why she is categorized as a developmental asset rather than an immediate impact player. Malou-Mamel's chapter ends with a boundary condition. Patience will determine whether her ceiling converts into minutes. The next chapter reviews the transfer, who provides predictable depth. Kayleigh Heckel arrives as a transfer from USC. She played 3 seasons there and appeared in 34 games with 7 starts. Her USC line reads 6.1 points and 1.9 assists in 16.9 minutes per game. She ranked 3rd on USC in steals. These are repeatable, role-specific outputs. Auriemma's public comments emphasize character, pace, and team impact. That language situates Heckel as a defensive-minded reserve rather than a primary creator. The brief catalogs a Boston College appearance in which she shot 1 for 6 and accrued 4 fouls in limited minutes, an early adjustment that mirrors typical transfer acclimation. Risk is low, reward is bounded. The brief projects 12 to 16 minutes per contest in year one, rising modestly with familiarity. Statistical ceilings near 7 to 10 points per game are realistic, given past production. Heckel's value is functional: defensive stability, rotation depth, and veteran minutes, without expectation of explosive growth. Her presence completes the immediate impact tier identified in the brief, a trio of potentially ready contributors, Quinonez, Fisher, Heckel, versus the developmental outlier, Malou-Mamel. This chapter closes by cataloging the rotational mathematics the coaching staff faces. The film now moves to synthesis and forward-looking assessment. The brief draws a concrete conclusion. If Quinonez accelerates and Fisher curtails early turnovers, UConn will possess a deep bench. The report quantifies that projection. An immediate impact tier producing roughly 40-50 of 200 combined bench minutes per contest. That depth coefficient is not theoretical. It is a calculated advantage UConn has leveraged historically. 2 measurable variables will determine whether depth becomes dominance. Quinonez's minute progression after recovering from a shoulder issue. The brief sets an expectation of 15-20 minutes by January, contingent on health and defensive fit. Second, Fisher's turnover rate through January. Defensive miscues and early fouling constrain her window. If these 2 trends follow the brief's projections, the bench will convert spare minutes into sustained pressure. If not, rotation balance will tighten and minutes will compress. Malou-Mamel remains the program's prospective long-term interior payoff. Her timeline suggests impactful minutes are likelier in year 2 or 3 than in the present season. Heckel supplies dependable relief. The immediate roster therefore mixes reliability with a singular developmental bet. This synthesis closes with a single operational instruction embedded in the brief. Monitor 2 variables: minutes for Quinonez and turnover metrics for Fisher, as the season progresses. The final chapter situates this season's newcomers within a historical frame. UConn's program identity is built on depth and interchangeable role players. The 2025-26 newcomers will be judged through that institutional lens. If the immediate impact trio performs as projected, the result will be a rotation depth that reproduces a familiar competitive advantage. If the developmental center matures more rapidly than expected, the program will add a new interior dimension in subsequent seasons. Legacy will be pragmatic, not poetic. Contribution will be measured in minutes, defensive rotations completed, and turnovers avoided. The brief's concluding premise is a modest one. Readiness trumps potential when the calendar moves toward March. The legacy of these newcomers will therefore be determined by quantifiable deployment and measured improvement. Monitor the facts. Track minutes, turnover rates, and coach language. These will record whether the freshmen listed here altered the team's trajectory this season or simply joined an already deep roster. That record will stand as the clearest measure of immediate impact. This is Prime Field. The analysis is finished.
Prime Field.